make a move and the bunny gets it.
I said, put the bunny back in the box. Why couldn't you put the bunny back in the box?
It's showtime.
Psychically, I'm very well endowed.
I want to know what you're thinking. There are some things you can't hide. I want to know what you're feeling. Tell me what's on your mind.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Monday night show. The bunny is thinking. In a new location. It was kind of mentioned last night. That's like I had a new bunny burrow. I kind of like that. So anyway, welcome to the office. Now this is one of the things that my good buddy Craig, who left me this house, wanted for me was a room that was kind of dedicated to me streaming, and with all my books back here and all my accoutrement, and so I did a test show yesterday. Did a test show last night, as a guest on the show, and so good so far. Everything seems to be doing pretty well. Let me see. I may need to turn the camera down a little bit. Hold on a second. Let me check that out. No, what's on the? All right. Okay. Yeah, I think it'll be all right. Anyway, so tonight, this show is just basically about things that I find inspiring, things I enjoy, that I kind of want to comment on. And I used to be a bigger sports nut than I am right now, but very rarely have I found like athletes that I found inspiring. I'm not really like a big fan of that per se. But a couple years ago, a quarterback kind of came on my radar. Anyway, hold on a second. What's up, Spider? Good to see you, man. New friend from X. Thank you for coming. But anyway, And so people are, I'm probably, my usual crowd's probably going to be like, oh, he's going to be talking sports. But to be honest, this story is it's bigger than sports. It's a story of redemption. It's a story of someone who fights, basically goes against the odds. And it's a Hollywood level story. When you start like listing the things that this kid has accomplished at 30 years old. It might be 31 now, but when you start listing the kind of obstacles that he's overcome, then it starts getting kind of outlandish that one person would be able to overcome the things that he's overcome, beat the odds in the way that he's overcome or beat the odds. You know, I kind of wanted to talk about this tonight because I am a big fan of resilience. I'm a big fan of people who are whose talent has kind of like risen, helped them like rise to the top, you know, their profession. And this is an individual who I believe on about every level has had obstacles thrown up. On every level, he's had people doubt him and kind of like give up on him. And I really honestly, I find him very inspiring. So for those of you that aren't like sports fans, T Bunny, the sportscaster. Like I said in my intro, this is not really a sports story. This is really just someone I find very inspiring. And I've done a few like Bunny's thinkings on things with him. But I found a really cool short documentary that is going to be able to tell the story better than me. But this is Baker Reagan Mayfield, born in 1995. And all right, so let me start out with you know, basically his high school, and then the first walk-on, his first walk-on situation, where he shows up and breaks all sorts of records, and they still won't give him a scholarship. I mean, it's pretty incredible. You know, later on, this particular coach, you know, went to the NFL, and Baker lit him up every time he came across him. Anyway, the dude, Baker has a long memory. He has a long memory. Anyway, so let me play this first bit.
Baker Mayfield is a player that knows a lot about the highs and lows of football, both in the NFL and in college. Baker was a walk-on and transferred all before winning the Heisman Trophy. He was the first overall pick and helped a struggling organization make the playoffs and even win a postseason game. Baker Mayfield was a top name in the game, and he had a bright future. But then he was replaced and sent to the depths of hell, Carolina. He struggled with a bad team, but found some success after being released to earn a one-year prove-it deal with Tampa Bay, where he did just that, proved it. Baker Mayfield has had his ups and downs. He started from the bottom and rose to the top just to fall back down and have to restart all over again. But he stayed resilient. His story is nothing short of incredible. Baker Mayfield was born on April 14th, 1995 in Austin, Texas. His middle name is actually Reagan, named after Ronald Reagan, thanks to his father James Mayfield, who played football at Houston for 3 years.
Baker played at Lake Travis High School and went 25-2 in 2 seasons and won the 2011 4A state championship. In all, Baker Mayfield had 6,255 yards, 67 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions over his high school career. He wasn't a very sought-after recruit, though. He was a 3-star and the composite 42nd best quarterback in the class. 1 spot ahead of Kurt Benkert, 27 spots behind Jared Goff, 32 spots behind Josh Dobbs, and 41 spots behind the top quarterback in the class, Max Brown. Baker received some offers from Florida Atlantic, New Mexico, and Rice, but instead decided to go to Texas Tech as a preferred walk-on. 2013 was the first season for Texas Tech with Cliff Kingsbury at head coach. Michael Brewer was the expected starter, but then suffered a back injury, and suddenly, Baker Mayfield was the first walk-on true freshman quarterback to start an FBS season opener. He put on a show in his first 2 starts, securing wins over SMU and Stephen F. Austin. Baker completed 71.1% of his passes for 780 yards and 7 touchdowns, plus 1 rushing, without an interception. It was an incredible start to his collegiate career, but it didn't last. He struggled the next week against TCU with 216 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 interceptions. Texas Tech did ultimately win after a Bradley Marquez touchdown, but it wasn't Baker Mayfield who threw it. It was actually true freshman 4-star Davis Webb who alternated between starting and backing up Baker in 2013. Baker did then have 4 touchdowns and an interception in a 63-34 blowout loss to number 5 Baylor at AT&T Stadium. Baker Mayfield appeared in 8 games and won Big 12 Offensive Freshman of the Year after he passed for 2,315 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions, plus 3 rushing touchdowns. The future was looking bright for the true freshman, but then he transferred. Baker said Texas Tech had not offered him a scholarship for the spring semester and decided to transfer to Oklahoma to play for Bob Stoops.
Okay, sorry for the sirens and stuff. I live in town now, and that seems to be the part of the background. A Noel War Chant. Okay, that's Florida State. Yeah. Well, you should be familiar with Baker. I think you guys played him a couple times. But anyway, so here he is. He gets he wins the he walks on at Texas Tech. Wins the starting job as a true freshman, first walk-on to start a major college program, as a true freshman, and breaks all sorts of records, wins Rookie of the Year in his rather large conference, and they still don't offer the dude a scholarship. And of course, he felt disrespected. And so, what does he do? He walks on at Oklahoma. Now, walking on, a walk-on basically is somebody that's not invited, that has no scholarship, that they're not even anticipating or preparing for. The person just shows up at the training camp and works their way onto the team. Now, walk-ons, they're kind of rare to have any kind of success, but they're kind of like the true Cinderella stories of any kind of like sports, collegiate sports. There's plenty of stories. The trophy was named for a guy named Brandon Burlsworth, who walked on at Arkansas and worked himself into an NFL contract, and then promptly turned around and had a car accident before he ever got a snap. He would have protected Peyton Manning, but he had a car accident that took his life before he even got a snap in the NFL. But he worked his way into All-American status from a walk-on. And Baker Mayfield actually won that trophy. It's called the Burlsworth Trophy. But Baker didn't walk on just once. He walked on twice. And so most people don't remember the Texas Tech part. They remember the Oklahoma part, because at Oklahoma is where he really lit it up. So let me play that for you.
The NCAA rule at the time was that a player who transfers and hasn't graduated has to sit out for a year. But the Big 12 had a rule that if a player transfers within the conference, they lose a year of eligibility and have to sit out. The loss of eligibility could be waived by the player's former school, but Texas Tech denied Baker's request. The Big 12 did later change its rule to let some walk-ons transfer within the conference without losing eligibility, a rule that Texas Tech actually voted in favor for, and it allowed Baker to play in 2017. The year he won the Heisman Trophy. After sitting out of the 2014 season, Baker Mayfield won the Oklahoma starting quarterback job over Trevor Knight. In his OU debut against Akron, Baker passed for 388 yards and 3 touchdowns and rushed for another. He passed for 13 touchdowns over his first 4 games as a Sooner, leading up to a huge game against Texas. Baker had a single touchdown, and Oklahoma lost its first and only game of the regular season. They followed it up though with an absolute smashing of Kansas State, winning 55-0 as Baker threw 5 touchdowns in his best performance of the season. He got his revenge on Texas Tech the next week, beating the Patrick Mahomes-led Red Raiders 63-27, and OU won the Bedlam game 58-23. At the time, Oklahoma State was number 11 in the country. Oklahoma went on to make the college football playoff as the number 4 seed, but ended up losing to number 1 seed Clemson 37-17 as Baker struggled. He passed for just a touchdown to 2 interceptions. Still, it was a successful season for the Sooners and Baker Mayfield. He had 3,700 yards, 36 touchdowns, plus 7 rushing touchdowns, and 7 interceptions, and finished 4th in Heisman Trophy voting. Again in 2016, Baker was a finalist for the Heisman Trophy, and so was his top receiver, D.D. Westbrook. He was just one of many good offensive weapons that Baker got to play with at OU, including Sterling Shepard, CeeDee Lamb, Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews, Samaje Perine, and Joe Mixon. He also had some pretty great offensive linemen like Orlando Brown Jr., Cody Ford, Ben Powers, and Creed Humphrey. Of course, there's always his backup too, Kyler Murray. It's safe to say that Baker had some talent around him, but OU still missed the CFP for the first and only time behind Mayfield in 2016 after they started the season 1-2. They dropped games to number 15 Houston and number 3 Ohio State by a combined 31 points. Baker was playing well regardless though, and OU didn't lose another game that season, including a Sugar Bowl win against Auburn. Baker had 7 games with 3 or more touchdowns, including that iconic 66-59 win over Texas Tech. The Sooners and Red Raiders combined for a Division I record 1,708 yards. Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes combined for 1,279 passing yards and 12 touchdowns. That was easily the best game of Baker's college career, and it helped him put together a good statistical season with 3,965 yards, 40 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and 6 rushing touchdowns. After the season, Baker got into some trouble after he was arrested in Arkansas on charges of public intoxication, disorderly conduct, and fleeing and resisting arrest. He ended up having to do 35 hours of community service and complete an alcohol education program. He then had plenty of extra backlash in his final season at Oklahoma after Baker Mayfield planted the OU flag in the middle of the O at Ohio Stadium. The best year Baker Mayfield had in college was absolutely in 2017, and it came after Bob Stoops retired and Lincoln Riley was promoted from offensive coordinator to head coach. Baker went on a tear. He had multiple touchdowns in every game, including a season-high 5 touchdowns and the only game he threw multiple interceptions, Bedlam. Baker had a school-high 598 yards, and OU won 62-52. Oklahoma dropped just a single game in the regular season in 2017, a 38-31 loss at home against Iowa State. Alan Lazard actually scored the game-winning touchdown, and David Montgomery scored in the Cyclones' win too. Other than that, OU ran the Big 12. They played TCU in the conference championship game, whose top receiver at the time was actually Jalen Reagor. Oklahoma won 41-17 and earned the number 2 seed in the college football playoff, where they'd have to face Baker. Finished with an incredible year, passing for 4,627 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions, plus 5 rushing touchdowns. He went on to win the Heisman Trophy, becoming the first walk-on player to ever do so. But up next came the draft.
Yeah, you heard it. He's the only walk-on to win the Heisman. Yeah. So, okay. So this dude basically, he comes out of high school, the stellar record, won a state championship in Texas, which is like the biggest football state in the United States. In Texas, football is kind of a religious thing. But he wins the state championship. But because he's 6 foot, and a 6 foot white kid, he didn't get offers, and so he walks on to Texas Tech. They don't give him a scholarship, even though he wins Rookie of the Year in the conference. Walks on to Oklahoma, and winds up leading their program to two playoffs, 2 college football championship playoffs, FSB series, and wins the Heisman as a walk-on. And so a lot of people would be totally okay with that as a career. But even then, people on the next level weren't even talking about him in the top 10. As a possible number 1, because Cleveland Browns, the hapless Cleveland Browns, happened to have the number 1 overall pick, and so their organization was kind of infamous for burning through quarterbacks, and so let's watch the start of his career and in Cleveland. Here you go.
There were some good quarterback prospects in the 2018 NFL Draft, including Sam Darnold, Josh Allen, Josh Rosen, and Lamar Jackson. The question was, who was going to go number 1? The Browns had the first overall pick at the 2018 NFL Draft after another disastrous season. Cleveland went 0-16, and that came right after a 1-15 finish in 2016. The Browns really were the laughingstock of the league, and Baker was drafted to hopefully be their savior. In March of 2018, the Browns decided to trade for Tyrod Taylor from the Bills. Cleveland went on to decide that he was going to be the Week 1 starter, and immediately he helped them snap a 17-game losing streak. But they still didn't win. They ended up tying with the Steelers. 2 weeks later, finally the Browns won a game for the first time since 2016, but it came with plenty of drama. Tyrod Taylor went down with an injury, and Baker took the field down 14-0. He went on to throw for 201 yards, and Cleveland came back to win 21-17 to end a 19-game winless streak. From that point on, he was the starter, and he led the Browns to their best record since 2007, 7-8-1. His first NFL start was a 45-42 overtime loss to the Raiders, but Baker then went on to win his first career start the following week, 12-9 in overtime over the Ravens. The best stretch of his rookie year came from Week 7 to Week 12, with a Week 11 bye along the way. Over the span, the Browns went 2-3 as Baker passed for 1,166 yards, 13 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Unfortunately, he'd have the worst game of the season in a loss to the Texans, where he had just a single touchdown to 3 interceptions. It was one of 2 3-interception games for him in 2018, including in Week 17 in a loss to Baltimore, which was his second back-to-back 3-touchdown game. Baker finished the year with 3,725 yards, 27 touchdowns, which was the most by a rookie in NFL history at the time, and 14 interceptions. It was a promising rookie season, but it came with its drama. Hugh Jackson was the Browns head coach to start the season before he was fired after a 2-5-1 start. He finished his time as the Browns head coach with a 3-36-1 record. It really can't get much worse than that. Former Bills head coach Greg Williams took over as the interim. Along with Hugh Jackson getting fired, so was offensive coordinator Todd Haley, which led to familiar name Freddie Kitchens getting promoted to his position as OC. Freddie Kitchens got a lot of credit for Baker Mayfield's good rookie season, and it led to him getting promoted to head coach ahead of the 2019 season. Safe to say, that didn't go too well. The Browns somehow actually got worse, and Kitchens was fired a few hours after the last game of the season. It was a less than ideal season for Baker Mayfield. There were some pretty big expectations heading into the year, especially after the Browns traded for OBJ from the Giants to pair him alongside Jarvis Landry. Odell did have a 1,000-yard season, which likely is the last of his career, but Baker had a bad sophomore slump. He didn't have a multiple passing touchdown game until week 10 and had 3 different games with 3 interceptions, including a 43-13 blowout against the Titans to start the year. His best game of the season came in week 12 versus the Dolphins. He had 327 yards, 3 touchdowns, which was one of his 2 3-touchdown games of the season, in a 41-24 win. Overall, it was a pretty disappointing season for both Baker and the Browns. They lost 4 straight at one point and closed the season with a 3-game losing streak to go 6-10. Baker finished the year with 3,827 yards, 22 touchdowns, and 21 interceptions.
Okay, around this time, this is not in the documentary, but this is the press started really getting on Baker Mayfield because he had these successful I think it was progressive commercials where he like the stadium, he like lived in the stadium, and so the commercial joke of the commercial was that that the stadium was his home basically, and they're funny commercials, and he was appearing in other commercials, and he's just very funny, he's very personable. But what happened was, because the success on the field wasn't equating the success in the commercial area, people started the press, every time he would not have a decent game, they would just immediately just hate on him. And it still happens to this day. There's still people, and there was some press in Cleveland. Mary Kay Cabot is and there's this other guy, I can't remember his name, doesn't matter. But I mean, it was just like nonstop. If he said something at least a little bit wrong, it was like blown up. And then people were like, "Oh, he's a bust at number 1. He's a bust at number 1 over pick." But mainly because Freddie Kitchens got that job because Baker liked him. And but when Kitchens became a head coach, he just wasn't head coach material. And the offense that he basically installed was so rudimentary, so like basic, that defenses would just joke about how they knew exactly what was going to happen, because there just wasn't any shifts. There wasn't like any subtlety to it whatsoever. They knew where the ball was going the whole entire time. So the fact that Baker did as well as he did was purely on Baker. It wasn't because Kitchens just he just wasn't head coach material. And it was just a bad decision. And so when they fired him, and they hired the coach that they were looking at before they hired Kitchens, which was Kevin Stefanski. So this is going to be the best of times as a Cleveland Brown and the worst of times as a Cleveland Brown. And Cleveland Browns showed why they are still the joke, the biggest joke in the NFL. And they made the worst decision that any franchise I've ever seen make. But I'm not going to ruin the suspense. Here you go.
It was pretty clear that Freddie Kitchens was not the answer, and that's when Cleveland hired Kevin Stefanski. At the time, the Browns had only made the playoffs once in 2002 since their return to the NFL, and they hadn't been back since. That was until 2020. Year one under Stefanski got off to a pretty rocky start with a 38-6 blowout loss to the Ravens, but Cleveland responded with a 4-game win streak, and Baker threw 2 touchdowns in each game. In week 7, he had a career-high 5 touchdowns to go with 297 yards and an interception and a tight 37-34 win against the Bengals. 5 games later, he had 334 yards, 4 touchdowns and no interceptions, and a close 41-35 victory over the Titans. Baker ended up having a pretty good bounce-back season. He passed for 3,563 yards, 26 touchdowns, and only 8 interceptions. But more importantly than any of that, the Browns went 11-5 and made the playoffs. They had to go on the road in the wildcard round to Pittsburgh and got a 48-37 win after jumping out to a 28-0 lead in the first quarter. Baker came to play, throwing for 263 yards and 3 touchdowns without a pick. The next week, the Browns actually gave the Chiefs a pretty good test, but did lose 22-17. It felt like Cleveland was finally on the cusp of being a true contender, and Baker Mayfield was a big part of that. They picked up his 5th-year option ahead of the 2021 season, and that's when things went south. In week 2, Baker suffered a partially torn labrum, and he just kept getting worse. He re-aggravated it in week 6, and later suffered a knee contusion in week 10. He was beat up all season long, and his play just wasn't good. He didn't have over 2 touchdowns in any game, and had a brutal 4-interception loss to the Packers. Baker Mayfield had easily the worst season during his time in Cleveland, passing for 3,010 yards, 17 touchdowns, and 13 interceptions. The Browns went 6-8 in his starts and 8-9 overall. After the season, Cleveland traded for Deshaun Watson from the Texans and signed him to a contract extension. So the Browns traded away Baker Mayfield to the Panthers for a conditional 5th-round pick.
Okay, they smoothed over some things. First of all, OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., biggest diva, like in the NFL during his tenure. But he was a guy who wouldn't run routes. He would basically run to the open field wherever he felt like running. And Baker, because of just the way his mind works, he likes to know where everybody is on the field. And so the only way that he could pass the OBJ was if he locked in on OBJ and looked for him every single time. And what that did was it made him predictable. And so OBJ went down with a knee injury. And because he went down with a knee injury, the rest of the year, Baker knew exactly where his receivers are going to be. And so it made him a better quarterback. And that's why he had such a successful year. But then the next year, OBJ comes back and suddenly, he had the arm injury. And so he couldn't just launch the ball like he had done his whole entire career with his cannon. And OBJ didn't get the ball enough. Of course, he's never going to get the ball enough. And so he went on a campaign accusing his dad went on a campaign accusing Baker of being racist. And so that tarnished Baker's and they traded away Odell. And people blamed Baker for that. And it just became ugly. But that's what ruined his reputation. Fans turned on him because he just couldn't zip the ball in there. And so the ball didn't have the velocity it used to because he was hurt. And, with OBJ, like accusing him of being racist, and him already being a white quarterback in the NFL at a time where black quarterbacks were kind of like in vogue. And suddenly he was expendable. And they bring in Deshaun Watson. And Deshaun Watson at that time, I can't remember how many allegations he had, but a whole bunch of masseuses in Houston were accusing Deshaun of being like promiscuous with them and molesting them. And this was like 22, I think it was. It was like a lot of them. And he was serving a suspension. He'd already been out of the NFL the year before because of an injury, and he was going to serve a suspension when he came to Cleveland. But because he was a black quarterback that had reasonable abilities, they paid him a king's ransom to come to Cleveland. They gave away their next three, basically gave away their next three drafts to get this guy. And he never panned out. And so they gave away Baker for a 5th round pick and like a potential pick. I mean, it was like bargain basement for a 1st overall pick. And it just got worse from there. And so you're about to see the darkest days of his career, and you're about to see one incredible night that saved him. Let me go ahead and play. Say that is I think it's this one.
Baker spent the 2022 offseason competing with Sam Darnold for the Carolina starting job. Baker did ultimately win the gig and started the Panthers' first 5 games of the season before suffering a high ankle sprain that caused him to miss some time. He came in for a struggling PJ Walker in week 9 and then struggled in week 11, a 13-3 loss where Baker had 2 interceptions. That was Baker's final appearance in Carolina. He finished his time with the Panthers 1-5 with 1,313 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. He requested to be released and was claimed off of waivers by the Rams. With only 2 days to learn the playbook, Baker Mayfield backed up John Wolford in week 14 against the Raiders. Sean McVay then benched Wolford after 1 series and put Baker in. The Rams were down 16-3 in the 4th quarter, but then some Baker magic happened. With 1:45 left and no timeouts, Baker Mayfield led the Rams on a 98-yard touchdown drive, capped off with a 23-yard Van Jefferson catch to win 17-16. Baker Mayfield went on to start the final 4 games of the season for the Rams, but won just one of them, a 51-14 win over the Broncos, a game where Baker was honored by winning Nickelodeon's prestigious MVP after throwing for 230 yards and 2 touchdowns. He finished his very brief time in Los Angeles with 850 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Baker Mayfield went on to sign a 1-year deal with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the 2023 offseason, filling the void that Tom Brady left after retiring. Tampa Bay did have a quarterback competition between Baker and Kyle Trask in the offseason that Baker did ultimately win. A lot of people counted out Baker Mayfield, but he certainly had a big comeback year in 2023. His best game was in week 14, a 34-20 win over the Packers. Baker had 381 yards and 4 touchdowns without a single interception. It was one of the 2, 3 or more passing touchdown games he had on the year, and he only threw more than 1 interception a single time. He finished the year with 4,044 yards, 28 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. That was enough for him to be named to his first ever Pro Bowl. Meanwhile, the Buccaneers won the NFC South for the 3rd straight year with a 9-0 Week 18 win over the Panthers. In the wildcard round, Baker won his 2nd career postseason game with a win over the Eagles. And like the time before, Baker had 3 touchdowns with without an interception. The following week, he had 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions in a 31-23 loss to the Lions. The Buccaneers and Baker Mayfield exceeded all expectations, and a lot of that has to do with offensive coordinator Dave Canales, who was just recently hired by the Panthers to be their head coach. Now, it's time to see just how well new offensive coordinator Liam Cohen can mesh with Baker Mayfield. He had success at Kentucky as the OC, and most recently spent some time with the Rams as their OC. Regardless, Baker Mayfield is now locked up. He got a 3-year extension in the offseason worth up to $100 million, with $50 million of that being guaranteed, and he's earned every dime of it. Baker has had a crazy up and down career, but he keeps ending up back on top, and here we are again. He's a starting quarterback in the NFL, and he finally got a big bag to do so.
Okay, that Panthers team had him and it had Sam Darnold on that team, and both of them were considered busts when they were with the Panther team, but now both of them are starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And so, in other words, the problem wasn't them, it was freaking Carolina Panthers. They're still a disaster. But the thing about it is, though, he got demoted to the scout team. I mean, the scout team doesn't even play on Sundays. And he got demoted. Not only did he not get demoted to the scout team, but he wasn't even playing quarterback for the scout team. They had him playing defensive end on the scout team. So he wasn't even playing quarterback. And then they're like, basically, we're going to release you, or you can ask for your release, or we can just release you outright. And so he asked for his release, and then on 2 days' notice, goes to LA, and last second comeback against the Vegas Raiders. But then this is old. This is an old, because the next season with Liam Cohen, he actually did better than he did with Dave Canales. And then then Liam Cohen, he did better with Liam Cohen than he did Dave Canales. And Liam Cohen is now the head coach of Jacksonville Jaguars. So he put 2 guys on the map. And Dave Canales is now at the Carolina Panthers, and Liam Cohen is now at the Jacksonville Jaguars. He has had 8 offensive coaches his career. 8. He's currently the new guy. He's currently working with the new guy. Their current record is 3-1. And the reason they're 3-1 is because he led last second drives the first 3 drives of the season, first 3 games of the season, and won it in the last minute. And so he would have done it yesterday, except a tip pass. But they put him in a hole, and he couldn't make it out of it. But he almost did. He almost drug them to another win. He's resilient. He's talented, but most of all, he just doesn't give up. And he's a dog, man. He's got that dog in him. And I'm very inspired by people who don't give up. He could have given up after high school, and even though he won the state championship, nobody major would give him a scholarship or any interest. And so he walked on to Texas Tech, and then he could have gave up after Texas Tech, or he could just stayed a backup at Texas Tech when they decided not to give him a scholarship. But he walked on to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma, won the Heisman, and did so well there that he became the number 1 overall pick to the worst franchise in the NFL, the worst run franchise in the NFL. And he could have gave up there after the bad season with Freddie Kitchens, but he came back, and then even though OBJ was bad mouthing him and he had a bad shoulder, he didn't give up that season with the bad shoulder. And he stayed the whole entire season. He fought all the way to the end, gave him everything he had. And eventually he got too injured because they were making him throw 30. He threw like several games where he threw 30 times with that bad shoulder. They were trying to destroy him, but he didn't give up. And then they released him late in the process, and so he didn't have much of a training camp with the Carolina. And Carolina was like had the worst head coach at that time in the whole NFL. The guy should have never been anywhere near a head coaching job. And that guy ruined him and ruined Sam Darnold. And then blamed it on, then when he got let go, Steve Wilkes comes in as the interim coach and buries him. And you know what? The other day, he remembered it because the other day when he beat Steve Wilkes' team, he mentioned it in, the press conference. He still remembers. But he could have gave up then. I mean, he was on the scouting team doing as a defensive end. He wasn't even playing quarterback. He could have gave up then because they were going to release him. Or they're just going to let him go. And he asked for his release. They gave him his release. He gets to the Rams and winds up starting after 2 days. And the Rams has one of the most complicated offenses in the NFL. And he learned enough of that book in 2 days. And he was learning it on the plane as he flew over. That when the end came, the end of the game came, and they had to go like 80 yards in the last minute and a half, I think it was. And he managed to do it with a beautiful pass. But then the Rams were like, well, you're going to if you stay here, you'll back up Stafford. And so he could have gave up on that and just been a backup. But he decided, I'm going to roll the dice on myself. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers took a chance on him on a prove-it deal. And the prove-it deal that he had was like all or nothing. Boom or bust. And it was only going to pay off if he did well. And then they gave him this rookie offensive coordinator named Dave Canales, a brand new offensive coordinator. I don't think the guy had ever been a coordinator before. And so they bring this guy in, and he manages to take them all the way to the playoffs and beat the Eagles in the playoffs first round. And so they gave him a contract, and the contract they gave him is not even one of the most lucrative. It's not even the top 20, I think, lucrative contracts in the NFL. But he did that because he wanted talent around him. And so they were able to sign people because they still had the hangover from Tom Brady, that big contract they gave him. But they were able to sign people and keep the team together. And the last season, he was one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. As a matter of fact, in the last 2 seasons, he's had the most touchdown passes of any quarterback in the NFL. And this guy just will not give up. He just doesn't have no quit in him. And I find that very inspirational. Because I hit obstacles all the time. And my tendency for myself is to give up and just walk away from things. And I need inspirational characters. So I need inspirational people like somebody like Baker Mayfield. And you know what? The press still doesn't give him his due. I mean, they still, if he does well, they'll praise him. But, only to a certain extent. And if he makes one mistake, like yesterday, he had a tip ball that got intercepted, and they're blaming him for losing the game, even though there was plenty of reasons that they lost the game. But the thing about it is, though, is his career's not over. He's already one of the most incredible stories that I've ever heard of. And I'm just really excited to see where he goes from here, because I honestly think before it's over with, he's going to wind up being in a Hall of Fame. I mean, he's already overcome so much. Why not? Why not? But anyway, so that's what I've been thinking about. And I thought I'd share that with you guys. Hopefully people that don't know football or anything like that will find something inspirational in his story. I know I do. I'm not a big football guy per se, but I'm a big Baker Mayfield guy. It's funny because, I was like rooting for the Cleveland Browns. I even have a Cleveland Browns shirt. And when they traded away Baker Mayfield and disrespected him like that, I was part of this this group, like this Cleveland Browns fan team or fan group, and I told them, I was like, I'm probably leaving the group, and they're like, why? I was like, seriously, Deshaun Watson. He's like, I know. I mean, he says, I know. I can't believe it either. And I was like, I'm more of a Baker guy than I am a Deshaun Watson, or than a Cleveland Browns guy. And so I was hoping he'd land somewhere. And I happen to be in Carolina. I'm not a Carolina fan, but I was perfectly willing to root for Carolina. But I'm glad he landed in Tampa Bay. He's got a chance in Tampa Bay. I don't think they're dead for the season. I think they're going to make some noise before it's over with. So pay attention. But anyway, that's been Cooper for Telepathic Bunny Comics. Thank you all for coming today. It was a little down today. I think that's probably because of the subject matter. It's not really everybody's cup of tea. But hopefully, for those who watch it on the replay, you'll find something inspirational. As I know I do. And I will see you Thursday. I haven't decided what I'm going to do Thursday, but just keep your eye on this space, and I'll probably have a few more shorts between here and then. My shorts program is getting some pretty good momentum right now, so I'm going to try to keep that up. Just passed over a milestone with my subs. If you're not subbed, please go ahead and do so. I'm making my way up to 700. Almost there. Hopefully it won't be too much longer. We'll find out. Anyway, thank you all for coming, and we will see you next time. Follow the White Rabbit. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.